Passion, talent, development. NCAA hockey offers all that, and its players graduate at a 93% rate. Trevor Zegras.
And they score on the lacrosse move!
Jake Gensel.
Gensel banks it towards the goal. He scores!
Cale Makar, he scores!
Stars on campus before the NHL stage. Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
My goodness gracious me!
Visit collegehockeyinc.com and follow at College Hockey.
Welcome back to College Hockey Today. Welcome to 2026, our first pod of the new year. Schloss, how was World Juniors?
It was great. Yeah, that was the first World Juniors I've covered in 21 years, believe it or not. The last one was in Grand Forks, North Dakota, where we were watching the first ever meeting between Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin in Ralph Engelstad Arena. That was an unbelievable World Juniors. It's always fun just to see all the different teams and who rises to the occasion on the big stage. And from a guy who covers college hockey, there were a lot of college hockey guys to write about in this tournament. I thought that was one of the big storylines, was how well the NCAA guys performed. And I think as years go on, we're going to see more and more college hockey guys in the World Juniors, because the rules changed that allowed CHL players to keep their college eligibility. Means you're going to see more NCAA guys on Canada, but it also opened the door for a lot of guys in Europe to stay eligible. And so I think we're going to see a lot of college guys in the future of this event, which probably makes it more exciting for college hockey fans. And yeah, I think when I walked out yesterday, I looked at the statistics, and the leading points getter in the tournament was Michael Hage from Michigan. Number 2 is Gavin McKenna from Penn State. The leader in goals was Porter Martone from Michigan State. And second was Will Zellers from North Dakota. So college guys sitting at the top there.
Feels like Will Zellers was a bit of a revelation for a lot of people during this tournament.
Yeah, he wasn't even on the initial camp roster. They ended up adding him a week late to have him come try out. He makes the team. He's on the fourth line, and all of a sudden he's scoring every single game. He had a goal in every game until the last one. He had the game-winning goal in all 3 of them, but that's kind of what he's done to start at North Dakota this season. Just been a really good goal scorer who's made major progress in rounding out his game and being effective. And we saw that against Finland on the game tying goal. He was relentless on that puck to keep it alive until Hagens made the great feed for the goal.
Thinking back to the previous World Juniors you covered in 2005, how is it logistically as a reporter covering the event? Had it changed much? I know back then there were mixed zones, a lot of access to the players. Has that changed much at all? How is it covering the tournament? Yeah,
there were still the mixed zones there, which I'll try to. So there's basically like a room that's a square, and they put up like one of those Tensa barriers kind of around the outside, and they leave like 5 feet, and the players just kind of walk behind the barriers, and they bring them in there. They give you, with 10 minutes to go in the game, they come around with a sign-up sheet, so you sign up who you want to bring in there, and then they'll bring that player in there. After the gold medal game, I was trying to see if I could get some photos of all the college guys with their gold medals. These SIDs help me out all the time with, getting photos and art of these guys. So I snapped a photo of Wilson Bjork and sent that to Jerry Cross at CC. And
nice.
I got Brian Kelly a photo of Sasha Boumediene with his gold medal. And then I feel really bad, Jamie Baldwin. Eric Nilsson never came to press. We tried to get him out there. I don't know if they forgot to bring him out or whatever, but Eric Nilsson was the 3rd college guy to win the gold on that team. Never got a photo of him, but yeah, they come out, you can talk to them, and they just kind of go down the line. And it was a good setup from a media perspective. Sometimes in these tournaments, the distance between the 2 venues can be an hour, an hour and a half. This time it was 10 minutes. So that was nice for some reporters to go back and forth. I mainly stayed at Mariucci for the first week, And then Jared Ribedo from the Bemidji Pioneer did the Grand Casino Arena games. And then the second, after I covered games back in Grand Forks, went back for the medal round and went over to Grand Casino.
Very cool. Very glad to hear you taking care of your SID people.
Yeah, those guys take care of me all the time, guys and girls.
They're
awesome to work with, and if I could help them out in any way, it was good.
Another international tournament, this time hosting or including college players for the first time. The Spengler Cup and the United States Collegiate Selects acquitted themselves very well, advancing all the way to the title game where they lost to the host HC Davos. I think it was the 17th Spengler Cup title for Davos. But by all accounts, the collegiate players acquitted themselves very well. Aiden Fink in particular had a big tournament. He was named to the all-tournament team, and I think the squad opened a lot of eyes on the international stage, no?
Yeah, absolutely. When you out there, they put, the gambling odds on the tournament. The U.S. Collegiate Selects had by far the worst odds. They were a sixth of the six teams, and it wasn't close to the fifth team, which was Helsinki.
Oh.
So no one really knew what to think of the Selects, but I think going into the tournament, people over in Europe were just hoping they weren't going to get absolutely blown out. And I think the first game against Canada really opened some eyes, how competitive they were. And by the end of the game, they were giving Canada all sorts of problems with their speed, and everyone loved the style of play. I read a lot of the coverage over there, and a lot of people in Europe aren't familiar with college hockey. And a lot of the questions I was reading online, a lot of people saying, how are our professionals losing to students? Like, what is going on? Is our league not as good, or are these college guys really, really good? And, all of a sudden, as it kept going on, you started seeing them come to the conclusion like, oh, they're not just beating the best team in Switzerland. They're beating the defending regular season champs in Czechia, too. And they're competing with all these teams. And I think it really did open eyes of Europeans on how good college hockey is, because they were not expecting the Selects to compete. And, all of a sudden it's 3-3 with 5 minutes to go in the championship game. Just a really impressive performance. I think all of us who watch college hockey know how talented they are, but still you never knew what they were going to do. Like some of these teams, I think Davos had 1,800 NHL games on that roster. Some of these names we're familiar with, like, Drake Kajula was the MVP of the Frozen Four 10 years ago. And now all of a sudden he's, into his pro career. He's an unbelievable player. And there are a lot of former college guys on these teams who we know are great players, and they're probably even better right now than they were in college. And so, yeah, for them to go over there and have the tournament they did, I think, I even saw in Czechia some people talking like, should our players be playing their U20 in NCAA? And so that's where you really, it really is impactful. I think Canadians, a lot of Canadians watch the World Juniors over Christmas. A lot of Europeans watch the Spengler Cup over Christmas. Yeah. So this was a really a big deal for the Selects to perform as well as they did, open some eyes, and I think it probably gave a lot of credibility in Europe to the college game. I don't know if did you see Vaclav Nestorsil's dad on Twitter?
No.
He tweeted after they beat the Czech team something like, sometimes I worry that I'm overdoing it with my college promotions, but after seeing today's result, no, I'm not. Be prepared for me to completely overload you now, or something along those lines. So, he's been trying to say, hey, this is how good the NCAA is over there. But now people who maybe disagreed with him, their eyes were really open by this tournament. So
that's awesome. It's been a really good year for college hockey. The talent pool, the product on the ice, the parity we're seeing too. Just look at the NPI for Exhibit A on that. And now the increased exposure on the international stage. But with all that good comes some challenges, and that's going to lead us right into our What Did We Learn segment this week. having watched World Juniors, having watched the Spengler, having watched these college teams while those tournaments are going on, what did we learn?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the challenge is a lot of these teams are they're without some of their key players for these tournaments and for these non-conference games. And, you go watch Boston College has a critical game against Western Michigan, and a lot of guys are out for the BC Eagles in that game. And BC is a team that's a bubble team in the NCAA tournament. And if at the end of the season, BC goes back to their computer and flips that result and says, oh man, we would have been in the NCAA tournament had we won that game, I know what's going to happen. In the future, they're going to say, well, should we be scheduling games during this time? And I think that's good. There's a really good discussion on the USCHO podcast last week about this.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend checking that out because they had some really good points and discussions on it. I don't think it's a one size fits all. There are a lot of teams that may say, hey, we don't have World Junior guys very often. Let's play. And there may be some teams like Penn State that you could tell clearly a few years ago said, let's not schedule games during this time. And I do think that with the result of the Spengler Cup, the selects are going to get invited back. I have no doubt about that. Like, when they went into it, they thought we need to perform well enough to get invited back. Well, that's going to happen. And I talked to a few of the guys who played in it, and they said their experience was unbelievable. They said one of the best experiences they've had in their hockey careers. And that's the feedback everyone got. And there were some coaches who were kind of skeptical about the Spengler Cup and sending guys who I know are talking to their commissioners saying, we need to stop scheduling games for this weekend because we want all our guys to go to this. We want our guys to have this experience. And so, I think scheduling is going to maybe be creative during that time. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think you want to take a month and a half off like Penn State is doing. But teams are going to be wary of losing World Junior guys and losing Spengler Cup guys over Christmas. So we'll see how they address that scheduling issue.
Yeah, if you're a coach and your two options are tell your players they can't go or don't schedule holiday games, you can't tell your players not to go. You may not get those players in the future. So, I think there is some sort of reckoning ahead, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I do want to give out a shout out to my old boss, Mike Snee, the former executive director at College Hockey Inc. Spengler was his baby. Well before I even joined the College Hockey Inc. team. He had to turn a lot of non-believers into believers over the years to get this thing to the line. But shout out to him. He had the vision, and it certainly came to fruition.
Yeah, it probably couldn't have gone as well as he imagined that this would go. It's not only results-wise, but just the experience the players had and the lifelong memory that they had. It sounds like the group of guys got, you got guys from all over college hockey. Sounds like they got along outstandingly well, that they were they gelled together pretty quick, and great result over there. It's been a fun Christmas break with all the hockey and how entertaining it's been, and to see guys perform on different stages. So we mentioned Nestersil just a little bit ago, silver medalist with Czechia. He had a wonderful tournament as well. So a lot of players from a lot of different teams performing well at the World Juniors and at the Spengler Cup.
Let's transition now back into the college game. First, with a lot of roster news. We saw Boston College add Oscar Hemming. We saw Colorado College add Mats Lindgren. Just this week, BU adds Tynan Lawrence from the USHL, and some injury news. It sounds like Quinnipiac will be without Jeremy Wilmer for the rest of the year. He led the team in scoring a year ago. Big loss there. And Arizona State freshman Jack Beck, it sounds like, will be out for the year as well.
Yeah. If you're curious on some of these ads, so I think BC and BU were short forwards to start the year. And I know, BC was going after Justin Carbonneau in the queue. He ends up staying. I kind of thought they were going to end up getting him. They didn't in the end. He stays in the queue, and there's 14 forwards. Oscar Hemming had an interesting situation. He was under contract in Europe, but then left the team, and he was going to go play in the OHL for Kitchener, but he was unable to because of that contract. Then he was going to go play in the BCHL. Still, the contract issue persisted, and now all of a sudden it kind of seems like a resolution for all parties. Hemming gets to go play somewhere, and it's college hockey, and BC finally gets that forward that it had waited to add. BU had 14 forwards this year too. BU is, most teams carry 15. And so the Terriers are able to add Tynan Lawrence, who, is looking like a top 5 pick right now in the draft. It was interesting, Muskegon wished him well and said, hey, that's kind of our guys go on their time. And they were proud to advance Tynan Lawrence. We'll see if it works for the other thing I'm thinking, Hemming and Lawrence, or Hemming might go in the first round. Lawrence is going to. The other reason I think these teams were probably eager to bring these players in is look at the draft eligible forwards in college hockey right now and how they're impacting teams. Gavin McKenna, yes. Adam Valentini, who in Ilya Morozov, guys who I thought maybe might struggle because they weren't super dominant in the USHL, they've been great. And when you start seeing all these draft eligible forwards, these younger forwards helping their teams out, I think they're looking and saying, hey, these guys are as good as all these other guys. Let's bring them in and see what happens. So, Niagara added a couple guys at break. They were short guys. So, yeah. And then CC, Matt brings in Matt Slinger, and CC obviously likely out the rest of the year without Max Burkholder, who would have been penciled in as their number 1 this season.
On the Tynan Lawrence edition, I mean, BU struck gold last year about this time with Yegorov between the pipes. So we'll see if it pays off for them again this year. Let's move on to the independents. I thought the big story was Alaska's 5-1 win at Providence on Saturday. Calvin Vachon with a big night. He stopped 43 of 44. The Nanooks, we've talked about them all year. They have this ability to knock off good teams. They have 5 wins this year, but 3 of those are Quinnipiac, Michigan Tech, and Providence.
Yeah, they have played really well at times this year. And when they get that type of goaltending, Vachon has had a lot of success in his career before college. So, he was on that, he played for Waterloo last year and was a pretty good goaltender for that team. So, when he gets going, he can certainly do this. And that was a big night for him and a big win for Alaska on the road.
Our next news item allows us to transition smoothly from independence to Atlantic hockey, where Canisius and Lindenwood had a fascinating game on Saturday. Lindenwood with 75 shots on goal and loses to Canisius 4-3. Peter Wickstrom Stumer, 72 saves for Canisius.
Here's the game of the week right here. That one you had to do a double take on. I checked multiple box scores to make sure that was correct. 75 shots on goal in a 60-minute game.
Yeah.
That is just unheard of.
34 in the third period.
34 in one period. Unbelievable. And then you go and look at shot attempts. Lindenwood attempted 127 shots.
Good Lord.
In that game. Giovanni Morneau attempted 17 himself, which is pretty unbelievable. He had 11 on net. That's just an incredible performance from Peter Wickstrom in net for Canisius.
It's his third game of the season, and I think his second start.
Was it really that's all it was? Yeah, they played Lindenwood Friday night. And Lindenwood ended up winning that one 5-2, and I know Canisius, Trevor Large challenged his team a little bit after that. And, I'm not giving up 75 shots in the game is not ideal, but when your goaltender can bail you out and somehow win that game, that was an Atlantic hockey record for the number of saves in the game. Yep. Usually these records are like these overtime games that go forever. This is a 60-minute game. Just crazy what happened there.
You can't get insight anywhere else like you just got on college hockey today, that giving up 75 shots is not ideal.
Yeah. That's the analytics, right? You don't
actually. It was a pretty newsy weekend in Atlantic hockey. Bentley and Holy Cross had their big showdown, and Bentley took 5 of 6 points. 8 different goal scorers in an 8-3 win to close out that series. What did you make of that result?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Not necessarily that Bentley had a good weekend, but just scoring 8 goals on Holy Cross.
Yeah,
that is definitely a surprise. Bentley has played pretty well after that. Losing the first 3 games against tough opponents this year, Bentley's really come around. And we talked about guys playing at the Spengler Cup. Jack Stockfish came right back and jumped into those games. By the way, I think he had 2 assists in the Saturday night game. But a lot of the Spengler guys jumped in, and he did. But obviously, it didn't matter for Bentley. That's a big win. Is Bentley now the favorite in Atlantic hockey? Maybe. But we kind of had eyed that series for about a month now, and a huge result for the Falcons.
Atlantic hockey had some nice non-conference wins this past weekend too. Air Force defeated Michigan Tech on Friday. Army took down 12th ranked Northeastern on Friday, and RIT blanked Penn State on Saturday. Jakub Krbiček with a 44 save shutout on that one. Handful of really good wins for Atlantic hockey.
Krbiček has done that several times now. He's he's one of those goalies that I think you fear a little bit when he gets hot. And obviously he was against Penn State. Obviously the Nittany Lions without Gavin McKenna at the World Junior, but their players from the Spengler Cup obviously had a lot of success over there, and just a really impressive performance by Krbiček. This was, you mentioned non-conference. This was our last kind of big round of non-conference games. There's still some left, but we have gotten through the meat of it. And here's how it's looking right now, by the way. The NCHC is atop at 67% winning percentage. The Big Ten's at 659. Hockey East 574. The ECAC 471, CCHA 410, Atlantic Hockey 384. And what's notable maybe about this is if the NCHC can hang on to this, it would end the Big Ten's run of 4 straight years as the best interconference winning percentage. I feel like the NCHC and Hockey East have switched spots from last year. Last year, NCHC did not have a great non-conference, and they were really struggling to get teams up into the top of the pairwise. And it ended up being a struggle the whole year, to the point where second place Arizona State missed the tournament. And the second place team in the NCHC missing the tournament, unheard of, had never happened. And right now, Hockey East is kind of looking at that when you look at the MPI. The top team in Hockey East is UConn.
UConn at 15. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. BC's right there at 16. And again, BC, if BC misses the tournament, I guarantee you at one point they're going to look back at losing to Western Michigan with a bunch of guys at the World Juniors. And BC ended up beating Lake Superior State the second night. That was a really competitive game against the Lakers the next night. So that was a big win for BC. They have some teams hovering there. Providence is at 18. Northeastern 21, Maine 22, BU 23, New Hampshire 24. They're all bunched there. How many teams can bump up is the big question.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk pretty soon about some of those teams who are sitting right above them in, maybe some that we didn't expect to be sitting there at this point.
On the other hand, as we talk Big Ten, you got more than half the teams in the conference within the top 8 in the MPI. The next team is 32, but 4 inside the top 8. It will be interesting to see how Penn State, they have all their players back from Spengler. They have their head coach back from Spengler. This is their first normal week in a long time.
Yeah, they've Penn State, their last before they did play RIT. Before that, it was Minnesota before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So they've been off for a long time, and now they play Minnesota again. So, it'll be a big series at home for Penn State. And you know what? Those Minnesota Penn State games have been pretty entertaining over the last how many
Almost
years?
never dull. Yeah, both teams like to go. Yep.
They do. So that could be a fun one this weekend. That's Friday and Saturday in State College.
If you're Penn State, you're especially encouraged, I think, by the Spengler Cup performance that Aiden Fink had.
Yes.
He's not had the season he's wanted so far due to injury, of course. He's been a point a game player when he's in the lineup, but he really played well and produced at the Spengler.
Yeah, he was their best forward at the tournament. Quinn Finley was really good as well. I thought TJ Hughes was really good as well, but Aiden Fink was the guy. He got injured in October. He did not play in November or December. And, for all the focus on other players on that team, there's a lot of players to focus on. Gavin McKenna, Charlie Serrato, DeMarsico and Jackson Smith and some of these higher drafted guys. But Aiden Fink was the Hobie Baker finalist that was returning to that team. And I think like some of our Penn State discourse, we almost forgot that Aiden Fink has not been playing for a really long time. Comes back. He had 2 points Saturday night as well, but we saw at the Spengler Cup how dynamic he can be and what a driver he can be. So can he kind of help push Penn State toward the finish line here? Penn State's currently 8 in the MPI, and that's going to be a big return for sure.
The big news in the CCHA was Augustana sweeping Colorado College. Just 2 losses since Thanksgiving for Augustana. They're 13 in the MPI right now, and they swept CC without their star goaltender Josh Kotai. Christian Mann stepped in and did the job.
Yeah, I think fans are maybe realizing that Christian Manns is a pretty darn good goalie too. That was a big get for Augustana when they landed him in recruiting. He was a pretty good goaltender for some of those good Chicago Steel teams in the USHL. And now all of a sudden he goes over to Augustana. And, had Josh Kotai not been as lights out as he has been, Christian Manns would probably be getting a lot more games. He's a good enough goalie to deserve more than he's gotten. Those
were his first 2 games of the year. That's pretty crazy.
Yes. So Kotai obviously coming back from the Spengler Cup. They decided to go with Christian Manns. I thought maybe are they going to get Kotai in on Saturday or not, or how are they going to handle this? They went with Christian Manns both games, and he delivered. Augustana on the Friday night game beats CC 3-2. Shots in that game fairly even, 31-28. Saturday night, CC outshoots Augustana 33-24. So a little bit more of a workload for Christian Manns, but Augustana is one of those teams that I think a lot of people are just going to be watching right now. They are hovering on that bubble. They were about there when they beat Omaha, and then right before Christmas break, then lost the second game to Omaha and dropped down a little bit. Now all of a sudden they were able to surge. Augustana went 6-2 against the NCHC. That has been one of the thorns in the side of the NCHC this year. That is the entirety of Augustana's non-conference. They played all NCHC schedule. The Vikings go too. Yeah, really impressive non-conference for Augustana, and they're sitting there at 13. Minnesota State's sitting there at 14. 2 CCHA teams could get in, but they're going to have to play well. And I feel like there aren't a lot of gimmies in that league.
Nope.
So their antennas are going to have to be up every night because there's some depth in the CCHA this year.
Yeah, Minnesota State actually was stuck in a 5-game winless skid here recently. Ended that with a win over Yale, a tournament win over Yale on Saturday. I also want to give a nod to Bowling Green. Quietly, one loss since Thanksgiving. They got a win and a tie against Ohio State this past weekend. So, it's a
very good result for Bowling Green.
You're right. No layups in the CCHA for sure. Let's move over to the ECAC, where Princeton is starting to make some noise, a 5-game winning streak. They're at 12 in the NPI and nationally ranked for the first time since 2018. A couple of nice wins over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the big storylines right now in college hockey. Princeton is up to 12 in the NPI.
Mm-hmm.
So Princeton could be there. Ben Sire, the longtime Cornell assistant, went over to Princeton to become head coach and obviously doing a fantastic job. Right now, Princeton's top line is just crushing opponents. Kai Daniels, who you may remember from that 5-goal game earlier, he plays with Jake Manfrey and David Jacobs. That trio in 14 games this year, 25 goals, 52 points, plus 54. They are a combined plus 54 in 14 games. So teams are just have no answer for that top line at Princeton. And the Tigers are making a lot of noise right now.
That unit scored just about half of their goals this year. So it kind of seems as they go, the Tigers go. The goaltending numbers aren't spectacular. So really it is that trio. And in particular, the Kai Daniels bounce back season really fueling Princeton.
Yeah, he's been sensational this year. Princeton's schedule is going to get really interesting here. This weekend, really big matchup on Saturday night against Union. That should be a really good one. I think I'm going to have to put that on my list to watch on Sunday. And then you go look at some of the other matchups. They still have to play Cornell twice. They play Quinnipiac twice. They still play Dartmouth, who, by the way, Dartmouth's kind of hitting a little bit of a challenging stretch after that really, really strong start. Dartmouth was up to 1 in the MPI. The Big Green have lost 4 of 5 right now. Very tough schedule, of course. They played Princeton in that stretch. They played Quinnipiac. They played Arizona State. Not an easy stretch by any means for Dartmouth, but when you look at the MPI right now, Dartmouth is sitting at 6, Princeton at 12. The ECAC has Cornell at 11, Quinnipiac at 10, Harvard at 17 lurking. So kind of interesting, despite not having like an the ECAC is under 500 in non-conference play, and to have 5 teams that high is certainly interesting.
Yeah, and keep an eye on Union this weekend too. They go to Quinnipiac Friday. Quinnipiac is 10, and then they go to Princeton, as we mentioned, on Saturday. They're 12. A couple of Union wins this weekend could really throw things out of whack.
For sure. Yeah, it's getting interesting in the ECAC right now.
All right, from ECAC to Hockey East, we touched on this a little bit. Just 2 teams inside the top 16 right now. That's UConn and BC. UConn playing really well right now. 1 loss in their last 10, I think. Tyler Musick had a really strong month of December between the pipes. So look out for UConn here in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, it'll be UConn plays Lowell this weekend, then hosts Vermont. So we'll see if UConn can keep this hot stretch going. The end of UConn's schedule is where things are going to really ramp up. If you look at what they've got in February and March, it's one after another. At Northeastern, 2 games at Maine, home and home with BC, home and home with UMass, a single game against New Hampshire, and a single at Providence. So UConn's going to want to make some hay here in January because it's about to get really challenging down the stretch. But you're right. It's been an impressive run as of late, and it all starts in net for that team. Ty Muslek's been sensational.
Maine as a team, I think the first 2 months really had trouble gaining any traction. It started to pick up a little bit before the Christmas break, and this past weekend is as impressive a weekend as anyone in the country, with a win and a tie at Denver of all places.
Yeah, going on the road there and having a big weekend was quite impressive. And I think, one of the things that may be happening a little bit for Maine is we're starting to get back to the Albin Boya that we know.
Yeah, the last 3 starts in particular, yeah.
But Boya had gone through some ups and downs early in the season, and he's certainly come around for, as you said, his last 3 starts now. And if Albin Boya gets going, that's a game changer for Maine. He's had some ups and downs. They got in their back up a little bit, and he's a game changer. And Maine's got some talent up front, and obviously they were able to do something that not a lot of teams have done, and that was get to Quentin Miller at Denver. Quentin Miller's had such a phenomenal start to his college career, and Maine was able to score 4 times on him in the series opener. The second night, Jurasevic with the big extra attacker goal to tie that late. So impressive weekend for Maine. And Eric Polkamp, by the way, did play in that series. He came straight off.
Played a lot by all accounts.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And then we already skipped out Vinny Borghese. I think he went like 30 minutes right off the plane for, he's incredible. So impressive performances to be young again, right, Hodge? Like,
oh my gosh. I this is true. I put away all our Christmas stuff yesterday, and I can barely move today just from lugging tote boxes around. Like it's pitiful. Yes. Forever young. Yeah. The struggle is real. Maine will stay on the road. They'll go to Providence and then UMass Lowell here the next couple of weeks as they try to creep back up in that bubble picture in terms of the MPI. Let's finish with the NCHC. The team you cover, North Dakota, with a kind of a skeleton crew roster here due to international competition, avoided worst case scenario in their sweep of Mercyhurst in terms of their NPI standing too.
Yeah, they were able to get by without, they did get their Spengler Cup guys back. I know they were worried about them not playing. I think they had a couple days of practice last week where they had 2 defensemen at practice. So
good Lord,
that would have been interesting. But Friday night, props to Charles Edward Gravel from Mercyhurst, stopped 46 of 48. North Dakota threw everything at him, and that was a 1-goal game with 6 minutes to go in the third period. Shots in that game were 48-8, and Charles Edward Gravel played phenomenal and kind of held Mercyhurst in there. The second night, again, props Salvador Avola. He's back from injury now, and North Dakota got to him in the third period finally, but that was a 2-1 game midway through the game. And then, the goals started piling up, which has happened to Mercyhurst at times this year.
Did you get some time with Rick? Sorry to interrupt. Did you get some time with Rick Gotkin?
Yeah, I was able to talk to him, especially before the series. And kind of crazy. He's been around for as long as he has, 38 years. And that was his first time ever playing against North Dakota. He's coached against almost every team in Division I right now. And that was one of the, outside of the teams that like just started in the last 10 years. But that was the first time he had ever coached against North Dakota, his first time ever in Grand Forks. And I know, Dane Jackson mentioned that he's gotten to know Rick Gotkin really well from the Florida conventions. And he had mentioned that he had never been to Grand Forks and they wanted to get him up there. So this game's been on the books for a couple of years, but I know they were excited to be able to get him to Grand Forks before he retired. They had a nice recognition of Rick Gotkin on the Jumbotron during the first break in action on Friday night, and kind of a salute to him and what he's meant to college hockey. North Dakota's Deputy Athletic Director Eric Martinson worked on the rules committee, and Martinson has talked about how much Rick Gotkin has meant to him and his career, and all these, Eric really talked about behind the scenes how many things he's done for college hockey. And, he doesn't get his name out there for the work he's done to try to better the game, but he really seems to have a lot of respect from everyone around here.
Yeah, no question about that. A team in the NCHC that is on the wrong side of the bubble at the moment, but starting to heat up offensively, starting to fill the net, is Arizona State. They've scored 5 or more in 4 of their last 5. Colin Potter has come alive for the Sun Devils here recently.
Yeah, I think Colin Potter had 1 goal in his first 11 games this year. He has 11 goals in 11 games now. He is having a multi-point night almost every single night. I think he has points in like 12 of the last 13 games or so. 13 of 14. He's been red hot for this team. Obviously, they've got some guys that are carrying that team right now, and it's Cruz Lucius, Bennett Shimmick, and Cullen Potter. Those guys have massive point totals. You look at their roster right now, and it's 32 points, 31 points, 25 points for those 3. And then their next closest is 12 points, and that's Kyle Smolin, and then Logan Morell has 9. So those guys are really carrying the Sun Devils right now, which is really no surprise. Those are really talented players. Lucius has been a game changer since his freshman year at Wisconsin. He had a tough injury coming into last year and never really got going. I felt, he had some good games, but we never really saw what we knew he had. And now we're seeing that again. Bennett Shimmick is one of the more underrated players in college hockey, I feel, and he's having a massive senior season. And then we know Cullen Potter, obviously first round draft pick, is doing what, he's able to do. So those guys are really carrying the team in that, Connor Hasley and Samuel Urban have both been pretty good as well. So nice goaltending duo for the Sun Devils, but man, that the top players on Arizona State are racking up the points right now. And they do have those guys playing on the same line. So
yeah, Lucius has taken over the national scoring lead with his 32 points. Great to see. Like you said, 2 goals last year in 19 games. He's found his footing this year. Bennett Shimmick right behind in that national scoring race, 1 point behind his teammate, Cruz Lucius. Okay, let's look ahead. We mentioned some of the matchups we're looking forward to this weekend. There are a couple that involve teams inside the top 20 in the MPI. We've got Western Michigan and Denver. That'll be an incredible series. And Minnesota State versus St. Thomas. That's a single game on Saturday. You're off to Colorado Springs to cover North Dakota and Colorado College. What else are you looking forward to this weekend besides the series you're assigned to?
I think St. Thomas is very quietly sneaking up right now. The Tommies have lost 1 time in the last 9 games. So they've started to get it going a little bit. And, Carson Musser, he had a really tough start to the season, and Carson Musser is starting to come alive here. He's on a 6-game personal unbeaten streak, and if he can really start going, that's a big deal for the Tommies. So that might be a something to watch there. I do think Western and Denver is going to be a fantastic series. I'm excited to see what Union can do on that road swing against Quinnipiac and Princeton, which we referenced. Can Maine stay hot against Providence?
Yeah.
And then, yes, I'll be heading out to CC, where we will have a couple of World Junior guys going against each other. The Canadian bronze medalists of Cole Reschny and Keaton Verhoff will be going against Swedish gold medalist Wilson Bjork, who was really quite good once he got into the tournament. And that's going to be a big deal for CC to get Wilson Bjork back in the lineup. We didn't even mention that he was missing for that series against Augustana. He's an offensive driver for that team, especially for a team that's been without Owen Beckner for a little bit. Owen Beckner was supposed to go to the Spengler Cup too, and unfortunately was unable to because of injury. He would have been a great player for that team. But, getting Wilson Bjork back, he is a difference maker offensively. And his brother Vigo, how about his performance there at the World Junior too? He was sensational for the Swedish team. So, yeah, it should be a fun slate of games.
CC desperate for wins, winless in 5. What are you working on ahead of this series?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at CC's analytics, again, they're pretty good. Like the analytics keep saying this is a much better team than than the record, much better team than the record. So can CC find a way to close out some of these games? Their play is good enough to win games.
Mm-hmm.
Can they find a way to just maybe bump up the offense a little bit some of these nights? If they can get Owen Beckner back in the lineup, get with Wilson Bjork, and this is a team with a lot of freshmen. And sometimes those freshmen come alive in the second half of the year, and we'll see if they can get a little bit more production. But every analytic on CC says this is a team that's much better than the record shows. So I'm going to get into a little bit of that in my previews before going out there. I'm I got to figure out what else to write about, because I've been so locked in on World Junior and Spengler Cup and all these other things that I finally got home last night, and I'm, trying to get back into the mix. So it's, we'll see what else I come up with this week. I might write a little bit about the mid-season additions and whether colleges are going to bring in draft eligible players at a higher rate than we've seen in the past, especially forwards. I think it's different if you're a D, but the forwards, if Hemming and Lawrence do extremely well in the second half of the season, you may see teams say, okay, look, McKenna, Morozov, Valentini, Hemming, Lawrence, these guys all were difference makers for their teams. Should we take first round picks in their draft eligible year? Maybe. Of course, they have to finish high school early, but you may see more of that in the future.
Yeah, something the USHL in particular will have to be prepared for. And to their credit, I mean, no one wants to lose good players mid-season, but to their credit, those are developmental success stories at the same time.
They are. They want the players to start with. You know what? They lost Tynan Lawrence, but guess what? The Muskegon Lumberjacks won their first ever Clark Cup last year because the MVP was Tynan Lawrence of the playoffs. So I think they're saying, hey, look, you brought us a championship. You'll forever be a Lumberjack legend here, and best of luck. Go dominate at BU. We'll go recruit the next Tynan Lawrence at Muskegon.
All right, no rest for the weary. Schloss, thanks for joining us today. I know you've got a lot going on. Safe travels to Colorado Springs. I know you always enjoy your time out there.
I do.
Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Hodge.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in full swing. The home stretch is basically here, so please enjoy the hockey.